7 proven hacks to get a bigger paycheck. Here's my challenge to you. Follow the 7-step negotiation system I'm about to share, and if you don't get at least a 15% salary increase within 30 days, I'll personally review your approach for free. Most professionals leave money on the table like stray coins, but not my clients. I've helped over 300 professionals secure raises between 20 to 40%, even in difficult industries like nonprofits and government. Soon, you'll learn how Michael overcame his company's strict 5% cap on raises and secured a 28% increase by reframing the conversation. You'll master these techniques whether you're naturally confident or break into a cold sweat thinking about asking for more money. Meet Sarah, the underpaid marketing manager. Meet Sarah, a marketing manager whose story might feel painfully familiar if you've ever suspected you're not being paid what you're worth. When I first met her, Sarah was making $60,000 a year, which doesn't sound terrible until you learn her coworkers were banking $78,000 for doing the exact same job. That's an $18,000 difference. Imagine what you could do with an extra $1,500 every month. That's basically a mortgage payment or rent just vanishing from your potential income. Sarah's wake-up call happened in the most random way possible. After 3 years at her company, a colleague accidentally shared a budget spreadsheet that wasn't supposed to go beyond the finance team. She sat frozen at her desk, coffee halfway to her lips, as her eyes locked onto the salary column, like finding someone else's diary open to the most revealing page. Every marketing team member's salary laid bare. She initially thought there must be some mistake. Maybe these people had way more experience or responsibilities she didn't know about. Nope. After quietly asking around, Sarah confirmed the worst. She was significantly underpaid compared to teammates with similar or even less experience. During her 3 years at the company, Sarah had consistently received glowing performance reviews. Her boss regularly praised her work, calling her an invaluable team member and exceptionally creative. Despite these stellar evaluations, Sarah had only received standard 3% annual raises that barely kept pace with inflation. Meanwhile, her colleagues who started with higher salaries got those same percentage increases, widening the gap between their compensation and hers each year. The math was soul-crushing. If Sarah had started at market rate, those same 3% increases would have put her current salary at around $78,000. Instead, she was stuck at $60,000, nearly $20,000 below what she should have been earning. This was life-changing cash, retirement contributions, debt payments, or taking that vacation without credit card guilt afterward. When Sarah discovered this pay discrepancy, she cycled through shock, anger, and an overwhelming feeling of being trapped. She loved her job, her team was amazing, the work was challenging in the best way, and the company culture was everything she'd wanted. The thought of starting over somewhere else made her stomach turn. But how could she ignore being paid 30% less than her peers? It felt like showing up to a restaurant where everyone else got the full meal while she paid the same price for just the appetizer. Sarah's first instinct was to quit. She updated her resume and started browsing job boards. But after a few interviews, reality hit hard. Finding a comparable position could take months, with no guarantee of fair pay elsewhere. She might just jump from one underpaid position to another. The competitive job market offered no assurances that her next employer would value her properly. That's when Sarah's situation began to change. A friend who'd taken my negotiation workshop mentioned my system. The same approach that had secured her a 25% raise without creating tension with management. Sarah reached out, desperate but skeptical. Can I really ask for such a massive increase? Won't they just laugh me out of the room or worse, start looking for my replacement? During our first strategy call, we mapped her situation in detail. Sarah's performance history was spotless, consistently exceeding targets and taking on extra projects. But there was a glaring problem. She had zero documentation of her achievements. When asked about specific contributions, she gave vague answers like, "I improved our social media presence," with no metrics or quantifiable results. The timing was perfect. Sarah had exactly 30 days until her annual performance review, the ideal window to implement my 7-step system. We needed every one of those days to build her case properly. With her review approaching, we had a natural opportunity to discuss compensation without appearing suddenly dissatisfied. Here's the truth that HR departments hope you never discover. Most professionals leave between $1 to $3 million on the table over their career by not negotiating properly. If you're making $60,000 instead of $78,000 like Sarah, that's $18,000 per year. Over a 40-year career, that's $720,000, without considering the compounding effect of raises, promotions, and investments. When I showed Sarah this math, her jaw dropped. She was on track to become one of those statistics. "I'm not good at asking for money," Sarah told me, echoing what I hear from about 90% of my clients. "I get nervous and stumble over my words. Plus, isn't it greedy to ask for such a big raise?" This mindset keeps talented professionals underpaid year after year. Negotiating your fair market value isn't greedy, it's business. Companies negotiate everything to get the best value. Why shouldn't you do the same with your most valuable asset, your skills and time? The good news: negotiation is a skill, not a personality trait. You don't need to be naturally confident to excel at it. You need the right system and proper preparation. Sarah committed to following each step, dedicating an hour daily for the next 30 days to prepare for what could be a life-changing conversation. The 7-step system isn't complicated, but it requires dedication, which is exactly why most people stay underpaid. Step 1. The salary research deep dive. That preparation time, it's not just about practicing what you'll say. It's about arming yourself with cold, hard facts that nobody can argue with. Most people make a huge mistake before salary negotiations. They spend 30 minutes browsing Glassdoor, maybe glance at Indeed, and call it research. Meanwhile, they're leaving thousands of dollars on the table because the real gold mines of salary information are hiding in places most professionals never think to look. When I first analyzed Sarah's situation, I immediately spotted her fundamental mistake. She had no idea what her actual market value was. She knew she was making less than her colleagues, but couldn't articulate exactly how much she should be asking for or why she deserved it. This put her at a significant disadvantage, like negotiating without knowing the true value of what you're discussing. "Sarah," I told her, "before you even think about what to say in that meeting, we need to build an ironclad case about your market value. We need precise, defensible numbers from multiple sources." I gave her a specific research plan that went beyond superficial browsing. First, we examined the obvious salary sites, Glassdoor, Indeed, and PayScale. Then I directed her to specialized resources: the Bureau of Labor Statistics Occupational Employment Statistics for her metropolitan area, and an industry-specific marketing association salary survey. The results were eye-opening. While Glassdoor showed an average of $72,000 for marketing managers in her city, the industry-specific survey revealed professionals with her exact skill set and experience were commanding between $76,000 and $85,000, a substantial difference from generic averages. "I had no idea there was such detailed information available," Sarah told me. "I assumed all these salary sites basically had the same information. They don't. Each platform uses different methodologies, samples different populations, and updates at different frequencies. Generic sites tend to underreport salaries because they rely on self-reported data, which is often outdated. Industry associations typically conduct rigorous annual surveys with verified compensation information. Sarah documented everything meticulously in a detailed spreadsheet with columns for data source, salary range, sample size, date of information, years of experience required, and specific skills mentioned. This transformed fuzzy estimates into concrete evidence. She also reached out to 3 recruiters specializing in marketing positions, something almost nobody does, despite recruiters having the most current salary information from active placements. I gave Sarah a specific script for contacting them. "Hi, I'm researching current market rates for a marketing manager with my experience level. I'm not looking to change jobs right now, but I'd really value your perspective on what someone with my background should be earning." 2 recruiters were surprisingly forthcoming. One shared that she had just placed a similar marketing manager at $82,000 plus a 10% performance bonus, real-time, actual transaction data. The most valuable resource came from an unexpected place: the annual salary survey published by the American Marketing Association. Sarah accessed it through her university alumni network, finding detailed breakdowns by specialty, company size, and region. For her specific niche in content marketing within a mid-sized company in her area, The survey showed a median salary of $78,500. This was the smoking gun. Sarah now had multiple credible sources confirming she was significantly underpaid. We created a one-page summary showing that based on 5 different reputable sources, the market rate for her position ranged from $72,000 to $85,000, with the most specific sources clustering around $78,000. The thoroughness of Sarah's research transformed her mindset completely. Before our work together, she would practice saying, "I believe I deserve more," in front of the mirror, feeling anxious and uncertain. After compiling her data, she practiced saying, "Based on current market rates for my position and skill set, the appropriate compensation is $78,000. The difference was remarkable. She stood taller, spoke more confidently, and no longer felt like she was asking for a favor. Most people drastically underestimate how much time proper salary research should take. I recommend dedicating at least 4 to 6 hours spread across multiple days. Sarah ultimately spent about 7 hours over a week, including reaching out to recruiters and compiling findings. When I mentioned spending 7 hours on salary research to friends, they look at me like I'm crazy, Sarah laughed. But we're talking about potentially thousands of dollars here. What other activity gives you that kind of return on investment? The research revealed another valuable insight. Marketing managers with experience in automation platforms and ROI measurement skills earn 12% more on average. Sarah had both skills, but hadn't emphasized them. Armed with this comprehensive research, Sarah was now positioned to make a precise, evidence-based ask. But knowing your market value is only half the equation. To complete her preparation, she still needed to prove her individual value to the company, to translate her contributions into dollars and cents. This next critical step would require building what I call a value portfolio, documenting specific achievements that make her value undeniable. Step 2, building the undeniable value portfolio. So you've got the salary research nailed down. Congrats on knowing what you're worth. But let me ask you this. If your boss demanded proof of exactly how much money you've made or saved the company in the last year, could you answer with actual numbers, or would you start sweating bullets? For Sarah, this question hit home hard. Having solid market research was only half the battle. When I asked her to list her specific accomplishments and their dollar value to the company, she froze. Like most people, Sarah had been doing great work for years, but had zero documentation to prove it. Her boss Mark had no clue about the actual value she'd been creating because Sarah had never tracked it properly. This is where most people completely drop the ball in salary negotiations. They walk in armed with market data about what other people make, but have nothing concrete about their own personal contributions. It's like showing up to court with information about what the law says, but no evidence about your specific case. So I had Sarah create what I call a value portfolio. Essentially your financial resume that transforms vague statements like, "I work really hard," into specific achievements with actual numbers attached. When I first suggested this, Sarah thought it was impossible. "I don't think I can put numbers on most of what I do," she admitted. Most professionals struggle to quantify their work, believing their contributions are too qualitative to measure. But everything you do either makes money or saves money for your company. You just need to connect the dots. We started by excavating Sarah's digital footprint at work, sent emails, project dashboards, client presentations, and meeting notes. Our digital archaeology expedition uncovered a treasure trove of data. She'd increased blog traffic by 43% year over year, directly correlating with a 17% increase in inbound leads worth approximately $32,000 based on average deal size. Sarah found evidence she'd reduced creative approval times from 14 days to 5 days with a new project management system, saving 324 team hours annually, about $16,200 in labor costs. The real gold mine came from an email marketing campaign she'd overhauled. By testing different subject lines and restructuring content, she boosted open rates from 18% to 27%, generating $43,000 in additional revenue compared to the previous quarter. For each achievement, we followed a simple formula: specific action, measurable result, financial impact. Instead of writing, improved email marketing, Sarah wrote, redesigned email templates and implemented A/B testing protocol, increasing open rates from 18% to 27%, resulting in $43,000 additional revenue in Q2. By the end, Sarah had documented 12 specific achievements, each with exact impact metrics. We transformed this into a professional 3-page PDF that included 1. An executive summary highlighting Sarah's $215,000 in measurable value, more than 3.5 times her salary. 2. Before and after screenshots showing visual evidence of improvements. 3. Testimonials from stakeholders, including her direct client who wrote, "Sarah's campaign redesign completely transformed our customer engagement strategy." 4. A 1-page greatest hits summary with her top 5 achievements and their dollar values. 5. A detailed breakdown of all achievements with methodology notes explaining the financial calculations. The design was clean and professional, using company brand colors to give it the feel of an official report. The most powerful element was a simple pie chart contrasting Sarah's current $60,000 salary against her $215,000 value creation. The visual impact of this gap was impossible to ignore. This value portfolio transformed Sarah from just another employee asking for more money into a proven asset with documented ROI. Creating it gave her tremendous confidence. For the first time, she could see in black and white exactly how much she contributed to the company. I recommend creating a value portfolio with 8 to 10 quantified achievements before asking for a raise. If you're thinking your job can't be measured in dollars, think again. Managers can calculate improved productivity or reduce turnover. Client-facing roles can measure retention rates or upsells. Operations staff can quantify efficiency gains or error reductions. Creative roles can tie work to engagement metrics or conversion rates. Be specific and realistic with your numbers. One questionable calculation can undermine your entire case. Sarah was conservative with her estimates, making her value claim more credible. This portfolio isn't just for salary negotiations. It's invaluable for performance reviews, job applications, and personal motivation during tough work days. Sarah now updates hers monthly instead of scrambling to remember everything annually. The entire process took Sarah about 3 evenings of focused work, roughly 10 to 12 hours total. For a potential $18,000 raise, that's an extraordinary ROI on her time investment. Step 3. The psychological preparation technique. With her value portfolio ready to rock, Sarah thought the hardest part was behind her, until I asked her to role-play the actual negotiation. Suddenly, her voice went shaky, her palms got sweaty, and all her brilliant documentation might as well have been written in crayon. What she needed next wasn't more data. It was a psychological rewiring that would transform her from apologetic employee to confident negotiator. "I know my numbers inside and out," Sarah confessed, "but the thought of actually asking for $18,000 more makes me physically ill." This reaction is common. Even the most qualified professionals often crumble during the actual conversation. Their brain short-circuits precisely when they need it most. That's why we dedicated an entire week to what I call psychological armor, mental preparation techniques that transform negotiation anxiety into negotiation power. Much like an athlete trains their muscles before competition, we needed to train Sarah's mind for the negotiation arena. First, I had Sarah identify her specific fear triggers. Through a targeted exercise, we discovered Sarah's primary fear wasn't rejection. It was being perceived as ungrateful for the job she already had. "Mark gave me my first big break in marketing," she explained. "What if asking for more money makes him think I don't appreciate everything he's done for me?" This fear was paralyzing her ability to advocate for herself. I taught Sarah the contribution mindset, a mental framework where asking for fair compensation is actually the responsible thing to do. When you're underpaid, I explained, you eventually become resentful and less productive. By addressing compensation directly, you're ensuring you can continue bringing your best self to work. This reframing was powerful, but intellectual understanding alone couldn't overcome the physiological anxiety response. We created a negotiation blueprint, a document with specific language, transition phrases, and responses to potential objections. Sarah's blueprint included her exact opening statement. "Mark, I've prepared a portfolio showcasing my contributions over the past year. After reviewing industry standards, I believe a salary adjustment to $78,000 would align with my market value and contributions to the team." We also crafted precise language for acknowledging her appreciation. "I want to express how much I value the opportunities you've given me. The mentorship has been invaluable, which is why I'm committed to continuing to deliver exceptional results here. Knowing what to say is only 20% of the battle. How you say it accounts for the other 80%. Sarah practiced delivering her negotiation script on video 15 times. The first attempts showed her speaking too quickly with undermining phrases. By the 10th practice, the transformation was remarkable. Her pace had slowed, her words were deliberate, and she maintained eye contact with the camera. The video practice was honestly the most uncomfortable part, Sarah later admitted. But watching myself improve with each take was incredibly empowering. Beyond script practice, I taught Sarah 3 physical techniques to reduce negotiation anxiety. The first was the power pose technique. For 2 minutes before important conversations, Sarah would stand with her feet shoulder-width apart, hands on hips, chin slightly raised, exactly like Wonder Woman. This expansive posture has been shown to lower cortisol and increase testosterone, physically creating confidence. The second technique was controlled breathing, specifically the 4-7-8 method, where you inhale for 4 counts, hold for 7, and exhale for 8. This pattern activates the parasympathetic nervous system, preventing the fight or flight response. The third technique was creating implementation intentions, specifically identifying when, where, and how she would handle moments of anxiety. If Mark says they can't afford it, then I will pause for 3 seconds, take a deep breath, and respond with my prepared ROI statement. We created a comprehensive objection map, identifying every possible pushback and crafting strategic responses. This eliminated the fear of being caught off guard. When Sarah had thoughtful responses prepared for everything from "we don't have the budget" to "other team members will want raises too," her confidence increased dramatically. The most powerful psychological technique was the alternative reality visualization. I had Sarah spend 10 minutes each day visualizing the entire conversation going perfectly with exquisite detail. She imagined the confidence in her voice, Mark's receptive expression, and the successful conclusion. To solidify her confidence, Sarah created a value reminder card. A small note card with 3 bullet points summarizing her most impressive achievements to keep in her pocket during the negotiation. The final psychological preparation was practicing the right mindset, viewing the conversation as collaborative problem-solving rather than confrontation. You and Mark on the same side of the table, figuring out how to align your compensation with your contribution. After a week of these psychological techniques, Sarah's transformation was remarkable. The video recordings showed a clear progression, from hesitant marketing manager to composed professional who knew her worth. In our final preparation session, she delivered her negotiation script with the same confident poise that champion athletes bring to their competitions. Step 4. Training complete. Strategic timing. Sarah was ready to enter the negotiation arena. The confident negotiator Sarah had become was ready for battle, but even the strongest warrior needs the right battlefield. Most people blindly schedule these career-defining conversations without realizing that when you ask is just as important as how you ask. There's a science to timing your salary negotiation, and the wrong choice could undo all her hard work in an instant. When I checked Sarah's calendar, I noticed she'd already made the classic timing mistake that costs countless professionals thousands every year. She was planning to bring up her salary during her scheduled annual performance review. I had to stop her immediately. "Sarah, if you wait until your annual review to negotiate your salary, you've already lost," I explained. "By that point, your manager has already submitted the budget for raises, gotten approval from higher-ups, and mentally locked in a number, usually that standard 3% increase." The surprise on her face was evident. Like most people, she assumed performance reviews were the perfect time to discuss compensation. In reality, they're possibly the worst moment. Instead, I advised Sarah to schedule a separate 30-minute meeting exactly 2 weeks before her annual review. This timing gives management enough runway to adjust budgets if necessary, while still being close enough to review season that her performance is top of mind. When Sarah sent the meeting request, her boss Mark responded almost immediately. "What's this regarding?" This is the moment where most people make a critical error. They tip their hand by mentioning money in the meeting description, giving their manager time to prepare all the reasons they can't give a raise. Sarah used the exact phrase I gave her. "I'd like to discuss my contributions to the team and my career development." This language is professional, positive, and doesn't raise immediate budget defense mechanisms while still being truthful about the meeting's purpose. The day and time of the meeting matter tremendously. I directed Sarah to schedule for Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. Mondays typically bring chaos with weekend email backlog. By Tuesday morning, people have cleared urgent tasks, but haven't hit midweek energy slumps. The 10:30 a.m. timing ensures your manager has had coffee, handled early emergencies, but isn't thinking about lunch or afternoon meetings. Avoid salary discussions on Friday afternoons when everyone is mentally checked out, or Monday mornings when stress levels peak, I warned Sarah. Also steer clear of end-of-day slots when your brain is too tired to make smart decisions. Timing extends beyond just the meeting itself. Several key factors influence success. Sarah's company had just announced strong Q3 earnings, exceeding projections by 12%. This increases your chances significantly, I told her. Research shows asking for a raise within 2 weeks after a strong financial quarter increases success probability by nearly 25%. Your request aligns with positive financial news rather than budget constraints. We also considered her boss's personal schedule. Sarah knew Mark had budget meetings Thursday mornings, so we avoided scheduling after those when he might be more cost-conscious. She'd also noticed he was most receptive to new ideas before noon. Another critical timing element was aligning with the company's salary adjustment cycle. Sarah discovered that while performance reviews happened in October, salary adjustments were finalized in early September for the next fiscal year. That's why we're targeting mid-August, I explained. You're getting ahead of the budget finalization, not trying to change decisions after they're locked. Sarah also learned her department was currently under budget for the quarter, another timing advantage. Managers often have more flexibility with funds already allocated, but not spent. The 24-hour window for sending her value portfolio was particularly important. If you send it too early, they'll forget details or build counterarguments. If you hand it over during the meeting, they won't process the information properly, I told her. I shared how another client had sent his portfolio 3 days before the meeting, giving his manager time to consult with HR and prepare a standard rejection. In contrast, the 24-hour approach had helped my client Jessica secure a 22% increase because her boss had just enough time to review her achievements without developing counterpoints. Sarah crafted a simple email to accompany her value portfolio. Looking forward to our discussion tomorrow. I've attached a summary of my key contributions from the past year to help frame our conversation about my role and development. We also mapped the conversation flow within the meeting. 5 minutes for rapport, 10 for reviewing portfolio highlights, a strategic pause, then her ask, followed by handling objections. This creates a natural flow that leads your manager to the same conclusion you've reached, that you deserve this increase. Our final timing strategy addressed follow-up. If Mark needs to think about it, don't leave without a specific reconnection time, I advised. Say, I completely understand, you may need to consult with others. Would it work to reconnect next Tuesday? The night before her negotiation, Sarah reviewed her comprehensive timing strategy. I feel like I've given myself every possible advantage, she told me during our final prep call. I never realized timing could make such a difference in negotiation outcomes. Step 5, the $78,000 conversation script. With perfect timing secured, Sarah stood at the threshold of the most critical 30 minutes of her professional life. All her research, documentation, and psychological preparation would be put to the test in this single conversation. Would she walk away with the $18,000 increase she deserved, or would she become another statistic? Someone who sensed their worth but couldn't translate it into actual dollars? The difference almost always comes down to the exact words you use when that office door closes. Tuesday morning arrived with Sarah's stomach in knots despite all her preparation. She'd rehearsed this conversation countless times, but sitting across from her boss Mark felt entirely different. The conference room seemed smaller somehow, the air a bit thinner. Thanks for making time to meet with me today, Mark, Sarah began, her voice steadier than she expected. Before we dive in, I want to emphasize how much I value being part of this team and contributing to our success over these past 3 years. This opening was strategic. By establishing her commitment up front, Sarah framed herself as a dedicated team member seeking fair value, not someone with one foot out the door using a competing offer as leverage. You mentioned wanting to discuss your contributions, Mark replied, glancing at the value portfolio she'd sent ahead. I've looked through this document, and I have to say it's impressively detailed. Rather than jumping straight to her request, Sarah took control of the narrative. I'd like to walk you through some key highlights, if that's all right. As marketing landscapes change so quickly, I wanted to make sure I connected some dots between my initiatives and our department goals. For the next 10 minutes, Sarah methodically highlighted 5 of her 12 documented achievements, focusing on those with the clearest revenue connections. She knew these wins by heart, telling the story behind each metric and explaining her process. She discussed her email campaign restructuring, how she rebuilt their customer journey map and retargeted segments with customized content, driving increased open rates and substantial revenue growth. As she wrapped up her value summary, Sarah had established a critical foundation. Her portfolio demonstrated $215,000 in generated value through 12 key initiatives over the past year. What came next would be the pivotal moment in the negotiation, a technique professional negotiators consider among the most powerful in their arsenal. Sarah was about to deploy strategic silence, a moment of intentional quiet that works like a perfectly timed rest in music. Just as a musician knows that the pause between notes creates tension and anticipation, Sarah understood that silence after stating her value would create a response obligation that few managers can resist filling. As you can see from the portfolio, I've generated $215,000 in value through these 12 key initiatives over the past year. Then, she went completely silent. For a full 5 seconds, Sarah said absolutely nothing. Mark shifted in his seat, feeling the weight of the quiet moment before finally responding. These are impressive results, Sarah. Your contributions have definitely been valuable to the team, and I appreciate you documenting them so thoroughly. But as Sarah had anticipated, Mark didn't voluntarily bring up compensation. This is where most employees make a critical mistake. They either back down or apologetically mumble about hoping for a raise. Instead, Sarah used a value bridge, connecting documented value to compensation logically. Thank you for recognizing that, Mark, Sarah replied. Based on these contributions and my research on market rates for this position, I believe a salary adjustment to $78,000 would align with the value I'm bringing to the team. She delivered this with steady eye contact and even tone, then returned to strategic silence. Mark's eyebrows shot up. That's quite a significant increase you're asking for, Sarah. Sarah nodded calmly. I understand it represents a meaningful adjustment. When I analyzed both my contributions and current market rates for marketing managers with my specialized skills in campaign optimization and ROI measurement, the data consistently pointed to this range. I'd be happy to share more details about my research methodology if that would be helpful. Mark leaned back. I appreciate the research, but I'm not sure our budget can accommodate such a large increase right now. We typically work with standard percentage adjustments. I understand budget considerations are important, Sarah replied. What I'm suggesting is aligning my compensation with the actual value I'm creating rather than focusing on percentage increases. When we consider that the $215,000 in value I've documented represents more than 3 times my current salary, the adjustment to $78,000 still provides the company with an excellent return on investment. Mark nodded, considering this perspective. He agreed to discuss it with HR and review their compensation bands, promising an answer by week's end. As they concluded, Mark asked why she compiled this information now. Avoiding potential defensiveness, Sarah explained she'd been tracking projects more carefully while researching industry benchmarks for career development, noticing the gap between market value and her current compensation. Walking back to her desk, her hands were still shaking slightly, but she felt immensely proud. Regardless of the outcome, she had clearly articulated her value without backing down. Step 6. Handling the budget objection like a pro. The budget objection, those dream-crushing words we all fear. Sarah was about to face it head-on as Mark's expression shifted from impressed to apologetic. Sarah, I appreciate your work, but we simply don't have the budget for such a large increase. There it was, the classic shutdown that stops most negotiations dead in their tracks. Most people in this moment do one of 2 things. They either awkwardly accept defeat with a mumbled, I understand, or they get defensive and argumentative, neither of which leads to success. But Sarah wasn't most people anymore. She had prepared specifically for this objection using the 3-part response framework I'd taught her. First, Sarah acknowledged Mark's concern with a calm nod. I understand budget constraints are a reality, Mark. Every department has to work within financial limitations. She validated his perspective without accepting it as the final word, creating an opening to continue the conversation. In the second part of the framework, the value pivot, Sarah shifted from acknowledging the constraint to focusing on ROI. When we look at the $215,000 in value I've created over the past year, the investment of $18,000 represents an 11x return for the company. That's actually a significant cost efficiency when viewed through that lens. This approach transforms the conversation from cost, triggering loss aversion in managers, to investment, activating their opportunity-seeking mindset. Mark's slight head tilt showed this reframing was working. For the third component, Sarah offered flexible alternatives. If the full amount isn't possible immediately, I'm open to discussing a phased approach or performance-based increases. For instance, we could implement half now and the remainder tied to hitting specific targets in the next 2 quarters. This flexibility technique works because it gives managers options rather than a yes/no ultimatum. Research shows people feel more comfortable when given choices versus a single proposal. Mark considered her points but raised another barrier. There are salary caps for your position that HR has established. Going outside those ranges would create internal equity issues. This is where most negotiations collapse, the policy wall. According to compensation research, over 70% of raise requests stall at this exact point. Companies hide behind policies because they seem immutable and impersonal. Sarah, however, was prepared. She used what I call the exceptional value bypass. I understand policies exist to maintain consistency, Mark, but exceptions are often made for exceptional value. The metrics in my portfolio demonstrate performance well above standard expectations for this role. This statement acknowledges the policy while establishing legitimate grounds for exception. It directly challenges arbitrary compensation limits that HR departments often impose. When Mark remained hesitant, Sarah presented the replacement cost argument. I've also researched that hiring and training someone new for this position would cost approximately 1.5 to 2 times my annual salary when factoring in recruitment, onboarding time, and productivity ramp-up. The adjustment I'm requesting actually represents significant savings compared to that scenario. This highlights the hidden costs of employee turnover, a pain point most managers understand intimately. Companies often focus on salary budgets while ignoring the massive expense of replacing valuable team members. Mark leaned back in his chair and sighed, a sign that Sarah's points were landing. You've clearly done your homework, Sarah. I need some time to discuss this with HR and review our options. I'll need to get back to you on this. Most people feel anxious at this response, interpreting, I'll get back to you as rejection. Sarah instead used a professional closing response. I appreciate you taking the time to consider this carefully, Mark. When do you think you'll have an answer? Would it be helpful if I provided any additional information to support your discussions with HR? This response expresses gratitude, establishes a timeline expectation, and offers support for his next steps, maintaining partnership rather than creating an adversarial dynamic. Mark committed to getting back to her by the end of the week, giving Sarah a specific time frame rather than an open-ended promise. The most important takeaway from Sarah's approach is treating the budget objection as the beginning of a problem-solving discussion, not the end. The framework works across industries because it's grounded in fundamental business principles every manager understands: return on investment, value creation, and cost efficiency. This method is powerful because it provides specific language patterns and response techniques that address the actual barriers managers raise, rather than empty platitudes like be confident or know your worth. When your boss says we don't have the budget, they're really saying, convince me this is worth prioritizing in our limited budget. That's a challenge you can meet with proper preparation. Step 7. The backup strategy that sealed the deal. Ever wonder what separates the people who actually get that 30% raise from those who walk away with the standard 3%? The secret isn't pushing harder for cash when you hit resistance. It's knowing exactly how to pivot when your initial number gets rejected. After all, salary negotiations aren't just about standing firm on a single number. They're about understanding the total compensation game and playing it strategically. Those nail-biting 48 hours after Sarah's initial conversation with Mark felt like an eternity. When her calendar pinged with a meeting invite labeled compensation discussion follow-up, her stomach did somersaults. This was it, the moment where all her preparation would either pay off or fall flat. Sarah walked into the conference room with her backup strategy, notes tucked in her portfolio, ready for whatever came next. Mark didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Sarah, I've spoken with HR and reviewed our budget constraints," he began, his expression a careful mix of appreciation and boundary setting. "While we can't meet your request for $78,000, I've been authorized to offer you a 15% increase, bringing your salary to $69,000. This is the absolute maximum we can do within our current budget framework." At this critical moment, most people make one of two catastrophic mistakes. They either grudgingly accept what's offered, leaving thousands on the table, or reject it outright, creating unnecessary tension. But Sarah had prepared for this exact scenario. She had a trump card up her sleeve. Instead of showing disappointment or frustration, she took a measured breath and nodded thoughtfully. "Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you advocating for me and securing this increase," she said, her voice steady and professional. "A 15% raise is certainly meaningful, and I value your efforts." Her response immediately shifted the emotional temperature in the room from potential confrontation to collaboration. Then came the pivotal moment. Rather than countering with another salary number, which would have sent them circling back to the no-budget objection, Sarah executed what I call the benefits pivot, a strategy that works in 85% of negotiations where the initial salary request isn't fully met. To bridge the gap between the $69,000 you're offering and the market value of $78,000 we discussed, I'm wondering if we could explore some additional benefits or flexibility options. Sarah suggested, using the exact phrasing we'd practiced. This approach acknowledges budget constraints while still pursuing fair compensation through different channels. It also gives managers a way to say yes, without breaking rigid salary bands that might exist in their organization. Mark's posture visibly relaxed. "That's certainly something we could discuss. What did you have in mind?" Sarah presented her carefully researched alternatives, each quantified with specific monetary value. 1. Working remotely 4 days a week, saving $2,400 annually in commuting costs and reclaiming 400 hours of personal time. 2. Increasing PTO from 15 to 20 days annually, representing approximately $1,400 in value. 3. Implementing a quarterly performance-based bonus structure tied to marketing metrics, with potential bonuses of $2,000 per quarter, creating an $8,000 annual opportunity linked directly to business impact. What made these requests effective was her preparation. Attaching specific dollar values transformed soft benefit requests into concrete financial discussions. Each alternative represented a piece of the compensation gap she was trying to bridge. Sarah waited quietly after presenting her alternatives, giving Mark space to consider her proposals. His expression shifted from concern to what looked surprisingly like relief. "These are all interesting options, Sarah," he said finally. "The remote work arrangement could certainly be workable, especially given your strong performance. The additional PTO might be challenging with our standardized policies, but the performance bonus structure is particularly intriguing. It aligns well with our emphasis on measurable outcomes." Sarah then played her final card, the future bridge strategy. "There's one more thing I'd like to propose," Sarah added. "If we implement these alternatives now, could we schedule a specific 6-month review to reassess my base compensation? I've prepared concrete metrics I'm confident I can hit that would justify another adjustment." Sarah provided a document outlining 5 specific, measurable targets demonstrating her value creation. This approach gave Mark a justification pathway for revisiting compensation before the standard annual review. Mark seemed genuinely impressed. "This is very well thought out, Sarah. Let me take these proposals back to HR and see what we can pull together. I'm optimistic we can find a solution that works for everyone." The power of Sarah's benefits pivot worked because she, 1. Quantified the financial value of each alternative. 2. Offered multiple options rather than a single demand. 3. Connected options directly to business results. 4. Created a bridge to future compensation discussions. 5. Maintained a collaborative tone throughout. What most professionals don't realize is that while salary bands are often rigid, there's usually much more flexibility in benefits, work arrangements, and bonus structures. Companies typically maintain separate budgets for base compensation and variable components, giving managers more leeway in these areas. By giving managers multiple ways to say yes, You transform yourself from a problem into a solution-oriented partner. This approach is actually preferred by most managers, who genuinely want to reward good employees. Sarah's $24,000 constraints. You might think the negotiation ends once you hear yes. But what you do in the 24 hours after any agreement can actually double your wins. When Sarah checked her email the morning after her final meeting with Mark, she was staring at a complete game changer that transformed a modest win into a massive financial victory. Sitting in her kitchen with her morning coffee, Sarah almost spilled it all over her keyboard when she opened Mark's email. The subject line read, "Compensation adjustment, effective next pay period." Her heart raced as she scrolled through the details. Mark had approved a base salary of $72,000, a full 20% increase that would kick in immediately rather than at her next review cycle. The weight that had been pressing on Sarah's shoulders for months seemed to evaporate instantly. After weeks of preparation and a single focused conversation, her financial trajectory had completely changed. But the base salary was only the beginning. Mark had taken Sarah's benefits pivot seriously, getting creative with the total compensation structure. The email outlined that Sarah could now work remotely 3 days per week, saving her nearly $1,800 annually in commuting costs, while reclaiming roughly 240 hours of personal time each year previously spent in traffic. The PTO adjustment came next. Mark had approved all 5 additional paid time off days she'd requested, adding another $1,400 in effective compensation. He'd cleverly structured it as a performance time off program where Sarah would automatically receive the extra days once she hit her quarterly objectives, making it easier for him to justify to HR while still giving Sarah exactly what she wanted. The quarterly performance bonus structure topped everything off. Mark had set up a tiered system that could potentially reach $8,000 for the year if she hit specific marketing metrics they'd discuss in their next meeting. The email specifically mentioned measuring lead conversion rates, content engagement metrics, and campaign ROI as the primary performance indicators. The specific targets will be finalized next week, Mark wrote, but I've already secured approval for the bonus structure based on your previous achievements and the value portfolio you shared. What Sarah did next proved to be absolutely crucial. Instead of simply replying with a quick thank you and moving on, she used the follow-up email template we'd prepared in advance. This created a paper trail that locked in every detail of the agreement while the iron was hot. Her response email began with genuine appreciation. "Thank you for your thoughtful response and for recognizing my contributions to the team. I'm excited about this adjustment and looking forward to continuing to deliver strong results." Then she strategically documented every component of the package, confirming the base salary increased to $72,000, the remote work arrangement of 3 days weekly, 5 additional PTO days tied to quarterly performance, and the quarterly bonus structure with potential annual value of $8,000 based on marketing metrics they would finalize the following week. She also added a crucial sentence that many people forget. "I'll follow up with HR to ensure all these changes are properly documented in the system." Then came the final masterstroke. Sarah included specific language about their agreed 6-month review. "I appreciate your commitment to revisiting my base compensation in 6 months, April 15th, based on my performance against the metrics we've discussed. I'll be sure to maintain detailed documentation of my results to make that conversation productive." When we calculated the total value of Sarah's new package, the numbers were stunning. The $12,000 base salary increased plus $1,800 in commuting savings, $1,400 in additional PTO value, and potential $8,000 in performance bonuses brought the total package improvement to approximately $24,000, a remarkable 40% increase in total compensation value. What makes this outcome even more impressive is how quickly it all happened. From the day Sarah discovered she was underpaid to the confirmation of her new package, exactly 27 days had passed. Less than a month to completely transform her financial situation. The follow-up email Sarah sent accomplished several important things. It eliminated potential misunderstandings, created a reference record, and demonstrated her professionalism. Most importantly, her email included specific implementation dates for each component, creating clear accountability and preventing delays. She also embedded the metrics for her future review directly in the email, establishing clear criteria for her next potential increase. Sarah's template followed a simple but powerful formula. Express genuine appreciation, document specific details with dates, confirm next steps, mention HR documentation, restate future review timing with metrics, and close with forward-looking enthusiasm. Fascinatingly, the negotiation actually improved her relationship with Mark rather than creating awkwardness. By focusing on her value to the company, she elevated how she was perceived. Mark later told her that her preparation had made it easier for him to advocate for her with upper management. When Sarah and I debriefed a week after everything was finalized, she shared something interesting. The moment I knew this had really worked wasn't when I got the email, but when I saw my first new paycheck. Seeing that higher number hit my bank account was when it finally felt real. The compounding effect, Sarah's $342,000 five-year gain. That confidence Sarah gained turned into cold, hard cash that multiplied like nobody expected. When she texted me 6 months after her successful negotiation, I literally had to reread her message 3 times because the numbers seemed too wild to be true. Yet there they were, staring back at me. Concrete proof that one negotiation win can snowball into life-changing money. I've got some amazing news, her message began. Remember how we calculated my raise would give me an extra $24,000 this year? Well, it's going to be way more than that long term. Sarah was riding a wave of professional momentum that changed everything about how she approached her work. The confidence boost from standing up for herself transformed her daily habits. Sarah began documenting every win, creating what she called her ongoing evidence file. Instead of waiting for her annual review to remember accomplishments, she tracked metrics weekly, saved congratulatory emails, and captured screenshots of positive results. This practice revolutionized her self-perception. I used to downplay my accomplishments, Sarah told me. Now I realize that carefully tracking my value is just good career management. This mindset shift led her to volunteer for high-visibility projects she previously avoided, speak up more confidently in meetings, and take calculated risks that showcased her expertise. When her 6-month check-in arrived, Sarah walked in with a new value portfolio that made her previous one look amateur. While the earlier version documented 12 achievements, this one contained 17 specific wins, each more impressive than the last. Among her accomplishments, she'd launched an influencer partnership program generating $37,000 in new business, optimized marketing automation to reduce campaign setup time by 40%, and mentored 2 junior team members who both exceeded quarterly goals by over 25%. Each achievement was meticulously documented with before and after comparisons and direct ties to revenue. Mark was visibly impressed. "This is the most prepared anyone has ever been for a review discussion," he told her. The meeting Sarah once feared transformed into a collaborative strategy session about her future. Mark proactively brought up compensation. "Based on these results, I think we need to adjust your compensation again." The outcome? Another 10% raise, bringing her salary to $79,200, exceeding the original market value she'd identified. Sarah calculated what this meant long-term. Compared to her original $60,000 with standard 3% increases, her new trajectory would yield a cumulative difference of $342,000 over 5 years. The financial gain wasn't even the most surprising outcome. Her relationship with Mark fundamentally changed. Where she once saw him as an intimidating authority figure, she now viewed him as a partner in her professional growth. Mark's perception of Sarah transformed completely. "He treats me differently now," Sarah explained. "He introduces me to executives as our marketing strategist who increased customer acquisition by 32%, instead of just Sarah from marketing. He asks for my input on high-level decisions and has mentioned grooming me for a director role in the next 18 months. This transformation created a virtuous cycle. Being viewed as a high-value professional led to more opportunities to demonstrate her capabilities, which reinforced her perceived value. Sarah no longer felt like an imposter hoping not to be discovered, but a confident expert who knew exactly what she brought to the table. The ripple effects spread beyond Sarah. 3 colleagues approached her for advice on their compensation situations. Using our framework, all 3 secured significant increases: 15%, 18%, and 22%. Emma's case was most remarkable. With only 8 months at the company, she secured a 22% increase by meticulously documenting early wins and using the objection handling techniques Sarah taught her, proving that conventional waiting periods are just another myth keeping people underpaid. When I asked Sarah what surprised her most, her answer was illuminating. I was shocked by how quickly people accepted my new way of presenting myself. I spent years feeling underpaid and undervalued, but once I changed my approach, everyone else's perception changed almost overnight. The only person who had been undervaluing me was me. This psychological insight is crucial. Most professionals create an internal narrative about their worth based on historical treatment, not objective market value or actual contributions. Breaking that pattern requires the structured approach Sarah implemented. Her case proves this system works across industries and experience levels. I've seen variations of Sarah's success with software engineers, financial analysts, healthcare administrators, and sales professionals. The pattern remains consistent. Proper preparation, value documentation, and strategic negotiation typically yield increases of 15 to 30% immediately, with compounding benefits over time. Salary negotiation isn't a one-time event, but the beginning of a new professional trajectory. The benefits extend beyond the paycheck. The confidence, clarity, and professional respect fundamentally altered Sarah's career path, putting leadership roles on her radar that weren't there before. Her $342,000 gain over 5 years represents not just financial growth, but the extraordinary power of learning to effectively communicate your value. Your 30-day negotiation roadmap. While Sarah's transformation might seem like financial magic, it actually came from following a precise 30-day roadmap that turns negotiation anxiety into actionable confidence. And here's the best part, you can absolutely achieve these same results. I've broken down this system for hundreds of clients, and when they follow it step by step, over 80% secure increases of at least 15% within a single month. But I'll be straight with you, only about 7% of people who learn these techniques actually implement them right away, leaving thousands of dollars on the table each month they delay. Let's turn you into part of that successful minority by mapping out your exact 30-day plan. 1. Commitment phase. Day 1, print this timeline, set calendar reminders, and tell someone who'll hold you accountable. These actions triple your chances of following through. 2. Research phase. Days 2 to 7, conduct thorough salary research using all 5 essential resources. Industry-specific salary surveys, specialized recruiting agencies, company internal documents, professional association calculators, and targeted LinkedIn outreach. Create a detailed spreadsheet documenting sources, dates, sample sizes, and skill premiums. Invest 5 to 6 hours across this week. Those who skip this typically leave 8 to 12% on the table. 3. Value documentation. Days 8 to 14, build your value portfolio, quantifying your exact impact. Collect 8 to 12 fully quantified achievements using the challenge action result format. For each accomplishment, apply the so what technique to connect your work to business metrics. Mark did this with his customer service role, tracing how his training program reduced call times by 18%, saving the company $37,500 annually. That documentation alone helped him secure a 24% increase. 4. Script creation. Days 15 to 21, draft your negotiation script with specific language that works. Include an appreciative opening, your value-based ask, and responses to the 5 common objections: budget constraints, policy limitations, timing issues, performance concerns, and peer comparisons. Record yourself practicing at least 10 times on video. Perform daily confidence-building exercises using the alternate reality visualization technique. 5. Meeting setup. Day 22, schedule your negotiation meeting for day 30 using strategic language. I'd like to discuss my contributions to the team and my career development. Choose mid-morning Tuesday through Thursday for optimal receptivity. Send your value portfolio exactly 24 hours before the meeting. 6. Final preparation. Days 23 to 29, continue practicing daily while preparing your backup strategy. The benefits pivot that helped Jennifer turn her initial salary rejection into a flexible work arrangement worth $12,000 in commuting costs plus additional vacation days. 7. Negotiation day. Day 30, use confidence priming techniques right before the meeting. During your conversation, speak slightly slower than normal, maintain eye contact, and use deliberate pauses after key points. After stating your request, count to 7 while maintaining comfortable eye contact. Never justify your request with personal expenses. Your case must be based entirely on professional value and market data. Throughout this process, you'll discover the silence leverage technique most negotiators overlook that creates psychological pressure for the other person to improve their offer. I'll show you exactly when to use this during day 30. If you receive pushback, use the feel, felt, found framework. I understand you feel concerned about the budget impact. Other managers have felt the same way initially, but they found that investing in key performers actually reduced costs long-term by improving retention and productivity. The most persuasive value portfolios include before/after comparisons, testimonials, and clear connections between your work and company priorities. Physical portfolios, not just emails, receive 22% higher offers on average. When creating your negotiation script, remember that actual word choice matters enormously. Replace uncertain language like "I feel" or "I think maybe" with confident phrases like "the data demonstrates" or "my contributions show." This system works, but only if you follow each step in the exact sequence. Jumping ahead to schedule the meeting before completing your value portfolio or skimping on practice time dramatically reduces your chances of success. The structure itself is part of the magic. Those who implement this complete system consistently achieve what Jackie did, turning a potential 5% standard increase into a 23% raise plus improved benefits package worth nearly $28,000 in additional annual compensation. Alright, we've made it through the entire system that transformed Sarah's career and her bank account. But here's the truth nobody tells you. Negotiating your worth isn't being greedy. It's an act of professional self-respect. The math is shocking. Every $10,000 you leave on the table today compounds into hundreds of thousands lost over your career. This represents future opportunities, financial security, and life choices. Take the 30-day challenge. Follow these 7 steps exactly as outlined. I guarantee a minimum 15% increase, or you'll receive a free strategy session. Your career is too valuable to evaporate like untapped potential.